Hi, everybody. How are you doing today? How's life going for you? We've been in this COVID period now long enough that it kind of is becoming the norm, isn't it? We're settling into whatever this period of time is. I was reminded this morning of one of my social studies teachers in high school about 100 years ago, and I can't remember which one it was, or I would give the attribution to that person. But I remember them saying, people living in the Dark Ages didn't know they were the Dark Ages. People living in the Renaissance didn't know it was the Renaissance. We hadn't called it that yet. And I think the same is true for all of the great designations that we give to periods in history. Excuse me. And so I wonder, other than being recognized for the COVID pandemic, what historians will look back at this time and recognize it was the beginning of. Because I think things have drastically changed around the planet. You hear people talking about how we will never go back to normal, but we will develop a new normal. And that caused me to think, well, I wonder where we are in the process. Usually these things take a fair amount of time, probably beyond my lifetime, to unfold and to see how it is viewed in retrospect. So when I got to thinking about, something's being created, of course that brings to mind the book of Genesis. Doesn't it for everyone? I know the answer to that is no. It's just my quirky little mind. But rather than going to any of our Christian writings about it, I went to the Jewish study Bible, the Tanakh. And this is why it's important. Let me just get on my little soapbox here. This is why it is important for Christians to understand the Hebrew scripture, similar to the Old Testament, not exactly the same. Books are in a different order. But it's important because that's what Jesus studied, and that's what formed him. And he was a Jewish man. He did not know that he was starting something new. He didn't go out and say, my name is Jesus Christ, and Christ is my last name. That was, again, something that was ascribed later on, looking back on his life and figuring out who he was. Anyway, I don't want to get started on that. So I went to the book of Genesis in the Hebrew, at least the Tanakh translation from Hebrew scripture, because I was a terrible, terrible Hebrew student in seminary. I think maybe I ended up with a B. I don't know. I thought I was working hard enough to get an A, but Dr. Henshaw disagreed. And so, but I think I got a B, which is fine. But I never really retained a lot. I took it over a summer, and the things that I retained are really in there, and the things that I didn't are gone, swept away by the winds of time. But one of the things that I remember is this opening part of the book of Genesis. And, when God created heaven and the earth is how the Christian Bibles usually read it, something like that. But listen to the translation in Hebrew scripture of that. I'll be reading the first 5 verses. Okay, here we go. When God began to create heaven and earth, the earth being unformed and void, with darkness over the surface of the deep and a wind from God sweeping over the water, God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, a first day. So 2 things. Obviously, the way it ends is a first day, not the first day, which many Christians think it says. It's a first day. It wasn't like demarcation, it is the first day ever. It was a first day. Why is it a first day? Because go back to the beginning. Did you hear that in the first verse? I love this. when God began to create. In other words, my friends, God is still creating. Now, our UCC brothers and sisters, they get that. God is still creating. Don't put it, using Gracie Allen's quote, don't put a period where God has put a comma, which also speaks to my heart. But this whole idea that God began to create and God is still creating makes me think again about this period that we are in. What is it that God is creating now? Things have been upended, I believe not by God, but that God uses to God's advantage everything that happens if we look for that. We are the ones who ascribe meaning to our lives. Again, book plug, go read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, another great book that affected my life a lot in my 20s. We ascribe meaning to what's happening. It does not mean that God causes everything to happen. There's free will, there's natural order, there's all that stuff. But we ascribe the meaning. And so those of us who believe that there is something like a God, however we define it, we are trying to ascribe meaning to what's going on now in terms of that belief system. So what is it that God is creating? If God is still creating, what is coming out of this? I have no answers for you, because what's going to come out of it for you is probably going to be different than it is for me. What's going to come out of this for you if you are in your 20s is going to be different probably than what comes out of it for you if you're in your 70s. But something is being created. A new order is being created. The people who want to hold on to the old way, I think, are going to get left in the dust. But it's not going to be a clear shot, one line, linear approach, because that's not how society grows or develops. It comes and it circles around, and then it goes on a little more, and then it circles back. And it's not really a circle, because you never come back to exactly the same place. It is a spiral. You come around to something similar, but from a different perspective. So we are on a spiral journey, my friends. And God is creating something new. What's it? What is it for you? And what is it going to look like? All right, that's enough to blow our minds for today. I don't want to keep going. It's really going to upset my day. I have other things I have to do. But these questions, these are the ones we should be asking and growing in our faith during this time. Thank you for joining me in this prayerful pause with the pastor, a few moments to think of things greater than ourselves. And I am the pastor, Deb Swift, pastor of South Presbyterian Church in Rochester, New York. You can learn more about us by visiting our website, which is on the end cap of this broadcast, and also by visiting our YouTube channel, South Church Rochester. We'll see you next time. Keep the faith. Have a great day. Keep questioning. Questions are good for faith. They're what deepen it and strengthen it. So keep questioning. All right. See you later. Have a great day. Bye for now.